For those of you just joining us online, I apologize. We've got a late start on the recording. We've done the announcements and we're getting ready to do roll call.
Okay. I believe Adam Andre is excused, but
He is.
Adam and Jake, you're not on. All right, Mr. Gator.
Here.
Eric Gordon,
Here.
Mrs. Ingersoll,
Here.
Mrs. Costock.
Here.
Mrs. Reckles,
Here.
Mr. Scarrow.
Here.
Ms. Corpus.
Here.
And Mr. Jaime Saravia.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum and this meeting has been noticed per state statutes. We do have a couple of individuals wanting to speak tonight during community participation. I'm just going to read a brief sentence and then I'll call you by name to come up. The community participation period is an important time for the Board of Education to hear concerns, gratitude, etc. of its constituents. That said, prior to making a statement, please be aware that each speaker bears the personal risk if anything they say during community participation of the school board meeting is defamatory, slanderous, or otherwise harmful to another individual. First up is Devin Gatton. And you do have a timer, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I'm gonna skedaddle after this, and my kids are on spring break, and this is my only day off of work this week, so. Kathy, thank you for coming out on Saturday. Kathy and I were there. Adam called me in the middle or right before Kathy had gotten there, freaking out, thinking that no other school board was gonna be showing up, and I was like, Adam, I'll try my best to be you, but like, I mean, I will be as unbiased as I can, but I mean, this is your show, not mine. Luckily Kathy showed up and we had a good time. So I just wanted to just say thank you for that. Next thing, I'm going to talk about something, and then I want to kind of go into the election real quick. A lot of people are saying the same things over and over again, which is this referendum is only $13 for a $300,000 house per month. And what always seems to get lost in the chaos is that $13 per month. That isn't how taxes are done. Property taxes are done. They're done at the end of the year where you have another $160 bill that's coming out into individuals that can't afford that $160 bill. That $160 bill represents those individuals' insurances, health and vehicle insurances. It represents those individuals' Medicaid. It represents those individuals' medicine. It represents those individuals' heating and electric bills over the winter. That represents those individuals' food bills over the winter. So this is not just a $13 cup of coffee, which is what I keep on hearing. And please, if you know a $13 cup of coffee, it better be Irish coffee, because that is expensive for a cup of coffee. Like, stop going to Starbucks and maybe just make a cup at home. But even so, the point is I mean, if we're going to talk about it, let's talk about it in real terms, which is $160 per year, because that's truly what this is. But that's really all I really wanted to say about the referendum. I just wanted to briefly say, next Tuesday is the election. It's not just the election for school board and for the referendum and all the other things that are happening here in Wisconsin, but I pray and I hope everybody gets out to go vote. I don't care who you are, I don't care what side of the aisle you're on, I don't care who you're supporting, what issue you're supporting. If you are a keyboard warrior and you're not getting out there and voicing your opinion at the ballot box, all of it doesn't matter. So go to the ballot box, go vote for whomever you want to go vote for, whatever issues you want to go vote for, and just say your piece. That's what Tuesday's for. So that's all I really had to say. So thank you.
Okay, next we have Deb Degner.
You've got me here. Hi, my name is Deb Degner. I teach kindergarten at Tibbetts. I've been there this is my 30th year. I made a video about all the reasons that I think that I know that center schools would not be good for kids. And I know kids really well, but all of the cuts that have to be made if this referendum doesn't pass are not only bad for kids, but they're bad for families, staff, the district, and ultimately the community. The kids are going to spend more times on buses. I never mentioned that. They're going to be in larger class sizes. they're gonna get less individual help. They're not gonna be with their siblings unless their siblings are right next to each other in years. But there's also the families. The families are gonna have increased fees. Bus routes need to be cut, which has more gas prices and really gonna mess with schedules. They're gonna have kids in different schools going from here to there. The shorter school year is also gonna cost families because if they've got younger kids that need childcare, this next year would be a week shorter and the year after that would be 2 weeks shorter. That childcare for those 2 weeks is a much bigger increase than the increase to their taxes. This is rough for our staff. There's going to be staff reduced. We're gonna have to pack up and move classrooms, move schools. Lots of people are gonna be in new positions. Again, we've got the larger class sizes and with the shorter year, less time to teach Elkhorn's very rigorous curriculum. And not to mention that teachers' pay will be frozen again. I know I read somewhere online that someone thought that the teachers that have been here the longest are making $90,000. I know not one teacher who's making anywhere near $90,000. I've got 4 kids in college and they're going to graduate making more than I make right now after 30 years, which is great. I'm happy for them. Teachers go into this for the kids. Yes, we do, but we also need to be able to support our families. We also go into it because insurance for teachers is so amazing. But it's not anymore. The public needs to know that money towards insurance comes out of our paychecks and that we have an $8,000 deductible. I'm just always in medical debt now from that.
30 seconds.
But people come to our town to be in our amazing blue ribbon schools, US World and News Report schools. And they're not going to come if we're not a desirable school district.
10 seconds.
And that's going to make property values go down. So please vote yes for the kids, for teachers, for families, and guys, for the community. Vote yes for yourselves.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that wanted to speak that had not filled out a card? Okay. We will move on, and next item is our energy use report.
Right. Well, I feel like it's been about a year since I've been here to do this initial report with Katie James, when we first talked about the reward we got. I think it was last May. So Mr. Truen thought it'd be a pretty good idea to circle back on some of the things that we've accomplished in the last 11 months and share that information with you guys. So as a little bit of a brief refresher here, in May of 2023, the school district was given a $100,000 reward from the U.S. Department of Energy that could be used any way that we wanted to try to repair or improve our efficiency within a district. We were offered another $50,000 once we completed the online classes, right, that they required in a project. So we did those 2 things. And then I don't really want to focus too much on number 1 and number 2, because those were the things that we kind of talked about last April with the energy plan that we had created with the Energy Elks and their group, and then the plan. I really want to focus on items number 3 through 6 and be able to share with you kind of the relationships that we've built, some of the benchmarking that we've done, and some of the real-time data and improvements that we've made within the district. So if you could, there we go. So first, some of the partnerships that we have. We formed 3 major strategic partnerships throughout the state. The first one was with Data Wrangler. Data Wrangler, in summary, I mean, they're kind of like the district's energy officer, right? We pay them for a service. They provide us with real-time feedback and give us kind of some energy saving strategies that we can use. Focus on Energy, for those that aren't familiar with them, right? They're a statewide program. They promote energy efficiency. And they offer rebates and incentives to communities and districts for their energy reduction of use. And then Energy Star portfolio, right? It kind of provides a snapshot of our buildings, all right, and what their usage is, and they compare it in a national database for similar sized schools to give us an Energy Star score. So our focus when we first started on this last April was with our middle school, right? And the screen on the left kind of shows where we're at in all of our buildings last November. We entered them all into our Energy Star portfolio so we could get the baseline scores so that we could do some other incentives with focus on energy, all right, and kind of see where we're at as a district to see what schools we want to focus on after middle school. Kind of the sore thumb in the group there would be Jackson Elementary. I see that they're at a 47 right now. Just to be honest, that number is a little bit off because what happened was there was a miscommunication. There's only one meter that feeds Jackson in district office. So when they entered the data, they only used the square footage of Jackson. Once we add the square footage of the district office, that number will automatically go up higher into probably the mid-60s. But that gave us where our baseline was, our Energy Star score was on all of our buildings around the district in November. So when you compare it to the screen on the right, that's kind of where our middle school was at. Again, that was our initial project school. In November of 2022, they were at a 37, all right? Then in November, they're up to a 57, and now in January, they're at a 61. So we're seeing an increased growth in the efficiency of that building. And those numbers will come into play a little bit on a future screen, but I just kind of want to highlight them now on this one. So one of the big things that we did was kind of like, how can we reduce our peak demand when it comes to these things? So when you look at all the blue lines that are on that screen there, all right, those, I'll go back one more.
Sorry, I'm trying to get that out of your way.
All right.
So you can see the-
So when you look at the blue lines that are on the screen, that's our 2023, the month of April of 2023, that's where our energy efficiency was at. We were getting up over 400 every day in our peak demand, which that obviously that's money, all right? So in 2024, we put a lot of things in place. One of the biggest things would have been pre-cooling our buildings and kind of using the cold air from outside to pull it into our buildings overnight to reduce the amount of air conditioning need that we had, primarily in the middle school. So that brought that curve all the way down, and you see it's sitting at around 250, 270 every day in terms of kilowatt usage, which is a nice flat line going across. And when you look at the weekends, you can kind of see that we're sitting at a nice low in terms of the baseline on the orange. So how does that constitute into dollars? Right, Mr. Taylor, if you click, go back one more and click the report summary. Right, so this is a Data Wrangler report that we did. If we scroll down just a little bit here, we'll go a little bit further, right? You're gonna see the baseline cost estimate right there on the far left, all right? Had we not done anything, we left everything the way it was in 2023, we could have expected to pay a utility bill in the middle school of around $17,671 for the month of April of 2024. But since we instituted changes and we brought that baseline down in 2024, it reduced our utility bill by $6,500. The two biggest ways that that happened was number one, right, we brought the peak demand down. We lowered the number district-wide, right, so that our utility bill in the middle school was not as high, right? The other thing that we did was we reduced the amount of usage that we had during the peak time, which would be air conditioners not running, and not having that overlap between kitchen appliances, right, and our actual mechanical systems, right? That obviously brings in big savings, right? This is kind of just a little bit of a breakdown in terms of our curves, right, in the 2 years, right? But we're not going to get too much into the details of that. It just kind of shows the savings, and that's our. So as we go back to the report now, right, we're going to fast forward then and go to the next one, which is kind of Tibbetts. Right, Tibbetts is another one of the schools that we're going to be working on next, right? Although Tibbetts isn't getting up to 400 kilowatts per day, you can kind of see that sitting at 100 is kind of high, right? But that's not the concern. They're using the energy that they need in a building. The concern is the lows, right? If you see that, there's a lot of jumping up and down, right, during the night hours and on the weekend hours, which with getting real-time data from Data Wrangler, right, it kind of shows us that there's something that's kicking on at night that shouldn't be. So now as we go through spring break and we go through our days off, we can shut down pieces and pies of the mechanical systems and see if we can figure out what the culprit is so that we can kind of curb that. Because when you look at the Energy Star scores, right, they have a lot of room for growth and improvement. And one of the last things I want to point out is just kind of our baseline is if you look at March 7th, right, the hump furthest to the right there, right? That's kind of, why is that so low? That there was no school that day, right? So when you look at it and you see what our baseline can reduce to just by, you know, we don't have the kids in the school, we're not using the kitchen appliances. It kind of decreases our load, right, by 50% on a given day, which is why, right, when we're in unoccupied stages after 4 o'clock at night, all those little things is why we try to turn back the mechanical systems, right, so that we can get that lower baseline and we can avoid those peaks. So how is all this data used, all right? The column on the left, all right, would be the column there that kind of shows our monthly savings. And this is just the middle school and high school, right? I just want to stress that this is just 2 buildings in our district, right? We do have Data Wrangler at Tibbetts and we have it in some other places, and we're applying the practices on all of our buildings. So just because we're not at Westside or Options with this technology doesn't mean that we're not applying the same practices to try to curb usage in those buildings. But this is where we have the most data from, right? By scaling back and doing the things that we've had, obviously, we're looking at about $55,000 in savings, right? In a month or in the year of 2024. Yes, there was Data Wrangler expenses and that was around 26,000, right? That's on the right column. So we have the automatic savings of around $27,000-$28,000 on our utility bills. But also we have the Fund 50 redirect and the Fund 80 recover amounts there that's knowledge that we're gaining by different pieces of this, right? That shows us what we could use if we either redirected or recovered some of those utility expenses.
So Fund 50 is our food service program. Currently, we don't bill utility costs to the food service program. You have to have the data in order to do so. So we're establishing that baseline, enabling us to, you know, then in the future, the board or we can make a decision in regards to whether to bill that back. And Fund 80 are the community service programs.
Before we had this kind of data, as Jason described, is a lot of districts are using like square footage and kind of coming up with their own calculations, and the DPI and the auditors are saying, well, that's not real data that you're basing it on. This has been accepted both by the DPI and our auditors as a mechanism that we could charge back, so.
Okay.
Please.
So then a little bit more detail on this. This is what a sample Fund 50 report would look like as I get it every month from Data Wrangler. It kind of, they walk the kitchens in every one of our buildings, right? And where we have it, it can give us what the per piece cost is. And it really breaks it down, all right, for us. And we know how expensive these pieces of equipment can be. The one thing I kind of highlighted there is a walk-in cooler, right? We don't think much of it, but it's at the high school based on the 13 cents per kilowatt cost, right? It comes out to $712 a month, right? To keep that running. The reason I bring it up is because I know a couple of months ago, we kind of were doing energy walks, right? In a couple of our buildings, and we noticed that obviously there was a walk-in cooler back in our agriculture room there, right? That wasn't really used as much, you know, in the school year. It's used a lot during the summer months when they have flea markets and the county fair and all that. All right, so we made a decision. I mean, obviously, let's turn it off for 9 months of the year. Let's buy a standalone refrigerator that's obviously a lot more efficient, because that walk-in cooler that's not on this report is still probably costing $600, right, to keep running for those 9 months. So the $5,400 of savings for those 9 months, or an $800 refrigerator, seemed like it was a pretty wise decision to make. And then when you throw on top of that, then we had another one over at Options that wasn't being used because they don't do a full food service there. We were able to get another refrigerator in there. So combined between the two, if you're looking at $1,200 of savings, right, a month for just turning off a couple of walk-in coolers. I mean, those are things that don't show up right now in the reports because we just implemented that obviously in the last 2 or 3 months. But it's obviously something that for the district, it's the things that we look for in terms of what we can curb to drive down these costs. All right, so then this is, I know it's tough to read, it's a sample Fund 80 report. We get a whole printout of middle school and high school usage for anything after hours. And I know that there's obviously some high school related events in here, but this is kind of, it's incredible the way it breaks it down. It takes what the baseline usage is of the building if there's nobody in it in an unoccupied mode, and it can tell us what an event would cost. So when you look at, like, down here at the bottom there, you can see 4 hours in the duration, voices of praise, right, in the auditorium, right? We know that that 4-hour event cost $34.75, all right, in terms of utility costs. All right, and it just gives us this data, this information, so that, like Mr. True and Mr. Tadlock said, if we ever choose, right, to be able to recover some of these costs, right, this is DPI supported data that we have here. So I mean, the soccer club being in the agility center for an hour and a half, using all 4 sections, each section costs $7.75, give or take, all right, to be able to use for that open gym, so. So all this comes into play, kind of like, I mean, we're pretty happy with things that we've done, all right, with our district and all that. But another program that we have here with Focus on Energy is the school government, utility bill verification system. All right, so this is a new program that we signed up. Only like 4 or 5 districts signed up for this last year statewide, all right, because it was kind of, right, and we were not one of them, sorry to say, right, we're in it this year, all right, right. But it's a tremendous opportunity because this is an incentive for districts, right, and for our buildings to take energy seriously because the amount of incentive that we can get in return. It's a whole program, it's under weatherized, normalized technical terms here of how they convert to savings. Our middle school, we know that we made drastic improvements last year, right? If we were a part of this program a year ago, based on the formula, we would have got an incentive check of $27,456 at the end of the year, right? That's just for one building, right? So when I talk about energy, I'm passionate about it because I know, right, the benefits that come to it. And although this number, it bothers me, would I have loved to have got a check? Absolutely, right? But I know that we're making drastic improvements on our building again this year, that we're gonna have the same opportunity. And since you're not, right, as of right now, you're not allowed to sign up back-to-back years, I'm kind of okay with the fact that we didn't sign up last year, because the reason we did that benchmarking that I showed you earlier is because this gave us an opportunity to get 5 schools into it as opposed to just 1. So hopefully we can get a much larger reward out of 2025, right? And the reason I'm still optimistic about the middle school is because on the next slide, we'll kind of go over, this is the major repair we're doing, right? Like we have that $150,000 to work with. As of right now, we're only using $82,000 out of it, all right? So 2 things that we did, right? Number 1, we really dialed in on our boilers, right? And tuning those up, and that was district wide, right? We realized that a lot of them were running at full capacity at all times, right? Which obviously is not efficient if you're just always heating water to 130 degrees, right? Rather than letting it, warm it up with due time, right? So we got those tuned up. Our middle school tune up, right? We got a $500 incentive on just that, right? But district-wide, we got $4,000 worth of incentives coming from Focus on Energy just for doing a boiler tune-up, right? But most importantly, on the middle school, we're able to reduce our gas significantly that's being used this winter by doing this because it's not full throttle. But the CDM upgrade that we're doing, and we talked about this a year ago, I think, right? The CDMs are a vent sensor. It tells those vents when to open and close to let air in, all right, so that we get the proper flow from outside air to inside air or going throughout the building. One of the biggest knocks in the middle school was there's always too hot in rooms, right, or too cold in rooms, and it was never balanced, all right? I've got minimal reports back this year, right, on this. We still haven't done the upgrade, but since we discovered the problem, we're able to open up all these vents to about 15% to allow a natural flow of air to go through, right, and get to all the buildings, making it warm, cold, right, whatever it needs to be, which much more efficiency. Once we get the actual vent sensors replaced, which we should be starting next month, all right, then they should automatically open and close without us having to keep them open, and it's gonna make it even more efficient. Right, the actual project cost is $92,000. We're gonna reduce it $20,000 by installing these things ourselves and just having Johnson Control come in and get them all programmed. We're gonna get a $5,500 incentive for Focus on Energy just for doing this project, right? And according to their energy calcs, right, we're gonna see about a $12,000 savings a year on our energy costs in that building. So when you look at return on investment, nobody's gonna argue with that. I mean, you're talking about a 5-year return on investment with well-balanced air and efficient buildings.
Right.
So I know that we'll be able to get some of that utility bill money back.
I mean, the cost for the project is gonna be funded through the energy prize money that we received
Oh,
of that 150,000.
oh, so
No,
it's automatic savings.
it's automatic savings,
No
it's all
contact.
reward money, right? So like, if you're talking about long-term goals and vision, I mean, obviously, right, with whatever energy incentives we're getting with this reward money, my goal is always to try to get it back into a fund and put it and reuse it back into energy saving practices and what we can do, right, to best balance it with the district. We kind of talked about, some other strategies, the pre-cooling, right? That was something that we really implemented last summer, right? And if you looked at, if we went all the way back to like slide number 3, when I showed that Fund 50, Fund 80 and the annual thing, you can see we had huge savings last year in the months of April, May, June, and July. A large part of that was because once we got to the summer months, right, we were cooling our buildings from like 4 AM until 10 AM, and then we we're shutting it off until 4 PM, right? And then we just ran it for 2 or 3 hours to get the humidity back out of the buildings, right, and keeping it off during those prime times, right? So when you look at the months of June and July, in the high school and the middle school, we're saving between $7,000 and $9,000 a month on utility costs by not running AC during the day. And then, dropping back heating temps on nights and weekends on number 3 there, that's a natural thing, right? It's something that we should be doing. We did it all winter long here, right? We had one little hiccup over winter break, but all in all, it was pretty successful. They installed the CO2 sensors, right? And those are something that'll go in our cafeteria and our gymnasium. It's just CO2 sensors can sense the occupancy in a building and tell the fans ramp up, ramp down. Right now, they're on at 100% all the time. We'd like to be able to kind of, like those boilers and gradually heating water, we need to have those sensors so that we're not always running full throttle, which would be an energy savings in itself. And this is something like, we talked about the Tibbetts energy that we wanted to save and how it worked. I've been talking with Mr. Frost about this. We'd like to create a little energy team with students out at Tibbetts so that they can kind of help us police it a little bit, so that they can have a little bit of a sense of ownership in there and start to get students involved in this process as well, so that, I mean, obviously their eyes in there and they can contribute, and we know that the kids out of Tibbetts are always energetic about stuff like that. And I kind of skipped over to pre-purchased gas. I know that was something that we reported on, I think. I feel like in the fall, I know that we've seen some gas savings by pre-purchasing. I don't know if Mr. Truen has any more insight on that or not, but those are some of the other strategies that we've kind of implemented here. And there's a lot more. I don't want this to just be a middle school project or a Tibbetts project. It's a district-wide project. And we look at the efficiency of our buildings, right? It's good to note that our high school, for being as large as it is still one of our most efficient buildings, right? It's got the auditorium, it's got the pool, it's got the agility center. I know that there's often knocks on that, but it's Energy Star score compared to a lot of the other buildings. I mean, the way we heat and we recondition it with having the hydronic in there, right? I mean, it's a very efficient building, but we still have best practices that we can implement district-wide, and it just, hoping to be able to get to those points with due time. So that's kind of where I'm at on that. I don't know if you have anything to add, Mr. Truen, or if anybody has any questions.
I think one of the maybe surprises when we got started with this, I think both Nick and I thought, well, the high school is gonna be the focus, and that's where we're gonna find the savings, and quickly we shifted to the middle school. And
Yeah,
that
I'm
became
shocked
the
that-
low hanging fruit, and I think one of the comments, and you can kind of add to this, and Mr. McBurney mentioned in terms of what he's noticed in terms of the environment, because it's not just saving money, it's how do we also make the environment better?
Right.
And bringing in more fresh air and having that circulation, because that helps all of people. I know he commented, I think, did anyone notice that this year?
Well, he tried to blame it on my furnace filters at first, right? Because they're making his doors rattle, and I said, the problem's not the furnace filters, the problem is that the air is finally flowing. All right, you've been there for 5 or 6 years and you've never actually experienced
Yeah.
the air getting to all the parts of the school and being able to recycle that cold air and have it actually functioning. And so when it actually gets to the point where it's all running, I don't want to say the right way, but the way it was designed,
Yeah.
right? Buying little 10-cent rubber pads to put on his door to stop the rattling, I'm more than happy to spend those dollars because it means that we actually have a point. So yeah, I mean, I've gotten the least amount of complaints, knock on wood, from the middle school this year about hotspots, right, in classrooms during the winter months. So either he's doing a really good job of buffering those, or there's just a lot less problems.
Great. It's amazing.
Any other questions?
I think so. Thank you very much.
you.
It was
Thank you.
super informational. All right, moving on to the approval of the school board minutes. We have a regular and closed session from March 10th. So we can combine. So looking for a motion on that one.
Let me get there and I will make that motion. I move to approve. There we go. I move to approve the minutes of the March 10th, 2025 regular and closed session school board meeting as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the March 10th, 2025 regular and closed session school board meeting. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Gayheart,
Abstain.
Mayor Gordon,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingersoll,
Yes.
Mrs. Costa,
Yes.
Mrs. Reckles,
Yes.
Mr. Scarrow,
Yes.
Ms. Corpus,
Abstain.
Mr. Jaime Stravia.
Abstain.
And then looking for a motion for the March 19th closed session.
I move to approve the minutes of the March 19th, 2025 closed session school board meeting as presented.
A second?
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the March 19th, 2025 closed session school board meeting. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Gayheart,
Yes.
Mayor Gordon,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingersoll.
Yes.
Mrs. Costa.
Yes.
Mrs. Reckles,
Yes.
Mr. Scarrow,
Yes.
Ms. Corpus,
Abstain.
and Mr. Jaime Stravia.
Abstain.
Okay, moving on to general and other fund bills. Mr. Chuen, do you have?
Yes, the general and other fund bills this evening covers checks number 154-701 through 154-816. Wire numbers 26 and 27 and ACH numbers 659 through 694 in the combined amount of $652,139.38. And I provided a memo with some additional details on several of the vouchers. You probably noticed a number of things were funded through different grants.
Yes.
There's furniture, there's
Yep.
travel, there's a number of different things. Also on the bottom of the sheet, just listed our debt service obligations. We pay interest
Yes.
in October, and then in April, we do interest and principal.
Mhm.
After these payments, our long-term debt obligations would be about $26.9 million.
Okay.
So. And then following the bill listing is a copy of the treasurer's report to the month of February.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Truman? This is more not, I don't know if it's a question or not, but since we did have one expenditure that was funded through a grant that was specific to furniture for the CCA. It made me think about our high school's lobby furniture and the cafeteria
Yeah.
that is,
We're looking at that right now.
okay, it's pretty bad.
Yeah, especially is the booth furniture in the
Yes.
cafeteria.
Yes.
And the chairs out.
Yeah,
Mr. Keel, Mr. Guy, we've been looking at that and getting pricing.
yeah,
I think you know this already, furniture is so expensive.
it is ridiculous.
But we've been looking at some options, certainly with the cafeteria, and then I know Mr. Keel would like to do something with that lobby area too, it's rough. It
So,
really
yeah,
is.
are we looking at something that's maybe a little bit more durable that,
That would be nice. Yes. I think for the cafeteria, they're looking more at chairs. aren't they?
Okay.
And,
You guys speak to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
I know that right now, yeah, we did price out chairs, right? And what we're looking at doing on the short term is the middle school has a stockpile of those nice heavy duty black chairs.
okay,
Right, we've been trying to integrate some of those over there and pull out benches,
okay,
because we already obviously have those. And they only use them a few times out of the year. So our thought pattern was if we could swap our booths they have 400 chairs over there, we really only need like 80 of them,
Okay,
right? They're easily portable, and we actually have introduced some of them over there just to see how the students reacted to them, and been kind of positive feedback. Yeah, I
Sure.
mean, so we're okay
Okay.
with that.
but somebody's got their eyes on that as a future expenditure.
Yes.
Cause it's embarrassing,
Yeah.
actually.
Well, yeah, and we were there probably a couple months ago, kind of looking at that, and, you know, I look back and those were purchased 2016.
I know, when
You know, so it's
the,
about 8
right.
years old now.
I know, that's
And
why
they
I'm
can
saying
use, but
a
yeah,
little bit more durable, cause it
Yep.
feels like they went south pretty quickly.
Yep. agreed.
High school students are so hard.
Oh, I
on
know. Okay, it was more of a question of, is that something that we're looking at?
It was slimmer than you thought. Yeah, I think. They're even looking at, this is the possibility of reupholstering or pieces like that too.
Okay.
'Cause I think the frames are decent, but I don't
Okay.
think they found good options on there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, if there's no more questions, looking for a motion to approve.
I move to approve the general and other fund bills of March 24th, 2025. Check number is 154701 and 154816. Wire number is 026 and 027, and ACH number is 659 and 694. In the combined amount of $652,139.38.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the general and other fund bills of March 24th, 2025. Check numbers 154701 to 154816. Wire numbers 026 to 027 and ACH numbers 659 to 694 in the combined amount of $652,139.38. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next on the agenda is the update on the referendum, if you have one. We've concluded all of our community sessions that we scheduled.
I can speak to Saturday.
Yeah.
Saturday, we had, I don't know, there were 6 or 7 people that came and visited. There were some people that we had been at previous visits. That's great. There were, I know, 3 new faces that were there. 2 people that I knew from kind of my neighborhood, a little bit north of me, and a friend of theirs who also lives in the area. I think they were all from LaGrange Township. Very appreciative of our communication, our openness, learned information that they didn't know before. And we're very appreciative of us doing that in general. Couple of follow-up questions that I need to address. And then the question came up, are we gonna do something like this on a regular basis? There was a couple of people that said, it was nice just being able to talk and
Sure.
find out things that are going on a more in-depth kind of level. So whether we have a particular subject, maybe.
So they're
that we
looking
need to
more for
talk
like a
about.
listening session or?
It was just, I don't know
Because
about
we
just
do have-
listening or it
We
was.
do have school board meetings that are live streamed.
True, but I think just the, maybe the ease of a less formal situation. When people are attending a school board meeting, they're getting information.
Sure.
They can communicate to us, but we can't necessarily
Right.
communicate back to them. This seemed to be a more sharing of information.
Sure,
They were able to ask questions and get answers.
sure.
And so I said I'd bring it up.
Yeah.
Because it's, and to do maybe something on a more
Maybe
regular
quarterly or
basis,
something.
maybe quarterly, and even monthly, even if we just open it up as a coffee chat, like we've been doing on just kind of an open topic. And I know that's a commitment from us collectively. And we all have very busy schedules and busy times, but it's again, I'm reporting back to the feedback that
Sure.
came from those community members that were there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
How did the March 17th one go? I was not able to.
Oh,
attend
that one also, I can speak to that as well, 'cause I was
Yeah.
there for that, you were there for that too, you wanna,
I have
you wanna take
something-
that one? Sure. Go for it.
I think it went really well. I got a lot of good feedback from people that weren't able to attend, but were able to see the live stream.
Oh,
They were
good.
very happy about
So
that.
we did have people tune in.
Yes, we did have people tuning into that. I think it went really well. Some of the people here today were also there, gave a lot of good feedback to us. You know, in general, just informational passing and things of that nature. I thought it was overall a positive tone. And there were some, there were some questions that were asked, and I think some information that wasn't necessarily known before was passed on, and I don't know, honestly, I don't know if it changed a mind, but
Sure.
it definitely, was something.
Yeah, and I saw a few new faces at that one as well. I've been to quite a few of these,
Mhm.
and, yeah, there were
Yeah,
some
the
new
last
faces
two
to
were
that
the
one.
only two that I've been able to.
Yeah, and so that was nice to see, that this is, we're still, reaching out and connecting with people who are still interested in learning about what's going on, and, yeah, so that was good.
Good,
That's
and
good.
thank you to, was it the AV club that did the live stream?
Mhm.
Yeah, the media, the broadcast.
The broadcasting club, yeah,
Yep.
so thanks
Yeah,
to
thanks to
them
them.
for making that live stream possible.
Mhm.
I would add, the last mailer went out, it should hit the mailboxes this weekend, I think most people received that in the area. We did receive some feedback, one individual pointed out, he felt that the wording on the back of the postcard wasn't as clear on that average cost estimate. There
Right.
wasn't room, you're very limited on the postcards, how much to put in there, but this individual felt like the wording wasn't clear, it made it sound like it was just $13.82. For the cost of the referendum, so taking that feedback, I shared it with them, we'll be sure to share it out today, and so we posted on all the social media pages, again, that chart that has been in the previous mailers on the fact sheet and shared on that costing of the referendum, and as Devin pointed out, it's not just $13.82 a month, the chart also has what the
The
annual
total,
cost is,
right,
what the monthly cost, if you want it broken down like that, if you're escrowing or whatever,
Right.
however you handle
Right.
that tax bill. But if there is any other points of confusion or topics that people want to share, or have shared out, we can certainly push those out this last week we're limited through the social media for the most part at this point.
Yeah, well, I guess the only other piece that I would have from that was just a fragment of a conversation that I had heard about, and that was, that it is still something that the board is bringing forward and not, the district, / administration.
right,
We also going to the individual schools to talk to the teachers. Found that very beneficial, not just to talk about the referendum, but to talk about other issues. And that's something I would strongly encourage us to do, not do let's go to in-service and have them all into
right,
let's go to them.
yeah,
Some were during their lunch hour, some were right after school. I would suggest after school because having been a teacher,
Mhm.
that 20-minute lunch period
Yes.
is just enough for me to snarf down the food and to get back to
Yeah.
class. So,
Recharge your
but-
battery.
but it's something that I could see us doing maybe twice a year
sure. Mhm. Okay.
after the year has gotten going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. Okay,
And then one other thing about last Monday. A topic that's going to be on all our minds was brought up for the first time. I hadn't heard it before. Someone asked, so how is closing the Department of Education going to affect us?
Yeah, and the answer is, we don't know.
We don't know.
Yeah, that's the plain and simple truth, we don't know. Okay, well, thank you all for, everybody who was able to attend any of the sessions. It was great to see all of the community members come out. Super thankful to each of the board members that came as well. I think it was worth our time and effort to do that. I think people really appreciated the time that we invested in that. Yeah, I agree. Okay, moving on to our personnel recommendations.
All right, we have a number of personnel recommendations today and first, we want to thank Lauren Entwistle, Kelsey Palma, and Eric Jorgalis for their service to the school district and wish them the best in their future endeavors there. Lucas Towery will be transferring from a special education teacher to the school psychologist position in training over working with the CCA. And then Christopher Earl is here. Christopher, would you like to wave, say hello?
Good evening, everybody.
Chris was selected to serve as the next Director of Business Services, replacing Mr. Truan, effective July 1st at the end of this year. Mr. Truan will be retiring. Yeah.
Nice.
And welcome, Chris. Chris is, anything you'd like to share, Chris, since you came in person here?
I'm just really excited to serve the Elkhorn Area School District where I started my educational journey once upon a time ago, so I look forward to it.
And then we have Jessica Reeve, who has been appointed as a high school track assistant.
Okay, looking for a motion to approve these personnel changes.
I move to approve the personnel recommendation sheet for March 24th, 2025, including new employment contracts, conditioned upon passing the background check, and the district mandated drug screening as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
So moved and seconded to approve the personnel recommendation sheet for March 24th, 2025, including new employment contracts, conditioned upon passing the background check and district mandated drug screening. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Oh, motion passes. You're official now. School gifts.
And we have a couple of school gifts. The American Legion Post 45 has donated $500 towards the Wall of Honor project to honor veterans. That is being in the process of being put together over at the high school.
I was just gonna ask you where we're at with that project.
I would have to check with Mr. Armstrong, get an update. Looks like we're still on the funding or fundraising.
Oh, we're still on the fundraising portion.
So it's not up yet.
Okay, how much, well,
I'll have to-
I'd like to know how much more we need.
Okay, I'll check with them.
Yeah.
And then St. Patrick's Parish has donated food items for students in need valued at $500.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for that generosity. Need a motion to accept.
I move to accept the generous school bids as presented.
There's a second.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the generous school gifts. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Now we have our second reading of our new homeless student policy.
I did not receive any further feedback, so it should be good for final approval unless there's any other questions or areas you want to discuss.
We're looking for a motion to.
I'll move to approve the homeless student policy as presented.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the homeless student policy as presented. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Okay, motion passes. 2025 summer school budget.
Yeah, traditionally, the school board has taken action to approve a summer school budget, because summer school runs on 2 fiscal years, a June and July, and we haven't approved, obviously, a July budget at this point. This budget is put together to represent that time period of June and July. Logistics are very similar to past years. The K-8 program, 2 weeks in June, 2 weeks in July, getting ready for kindergarten here at Jackson, and then the 1st through 8th grade is at the middle school, and then the high school program's a little extended to earn credit and such for those programs. One of the things we looked at is not only cost, but also with the summer school program, we're able to generate revenue cap FTE for that program. So
Nice.
there's a calculation for that based upon the number of minutes of instruction. And we try to balance out with that revenue cap revenue with the expenses, so it's close to equal. And we look back at last year, it was about 314,000 in the program expense, is estimated about 310,000 for this year. So
Okay.
try to keep that in relationship.
I think it's important to point that out because I've seen a common question as well, why don't, our summer school program's great, it's wonderful, but if we need to reduce, budgetary, or reduce the expenses, why not cut summer school?
Well, it pays for itself.
It pays for itself, correct. If we were operating in the red on summer school, that would be different, but if we eliminated summer school, we'd eliminate the revenue generation associated with summer school. So we would just be taking a self-sufficient program away. Districts that have done that in the past, because the FTE for this summer's operation will go on to next year's revenue limit. You do theoretically get a 1 year, we generated the revenue, and then we don't have the expense in the coming summer. But then once schools eliminate summer school, it's almost impossible for them to start it back up because they have to lag a year in
Yes.
regenerating it. So that's why we haven't ever made the recommendation to cut summer school
Yeah.
for that program.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
And certainly something to evaluate each time, and if everything came up, right?
Should always be something.
It should be, yes,
Yeah.
oh, absolutely, I don't,
Okay. Looking for a motion to approve.
I move to approve the 2025 summer school budget as presented.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the 2025 summer school budget. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Okay. Motion passes. Next is the creation of an ad hoc legislative committee. We do need a motion to create that. We talked about it at the last meeting. The only person that I heard from formally was Adam, asked to be part of that legislative committee.
I also did, and I'm sorry if
You
that
did?
wasn't clear. I didn't write to you, but I
Oh.
said it at the meeting, I'm sorry.
Okay, got it. Sorry. Didn't remember that. I was
Okay.
up since then.
No worries.
Were we gonna discuss like how many committee members and all that?
Yeah, I think we need to have that discussion, and exactly what do we want that structure of that committee to look like in terms of members? So, I think 2, board members is probably sufficient for the committee. Most of our committees are 2 or 3. I think for this one is 2 is plenty. Any board member is allowed to attend any committee meeting, whether you're officially on the committee or not. So, but what are your thoughts on committee, do we want to include anyone from admin? Do we want to, how many, people from the community do we want to include?
I have limited experience coming at it, and I guess I could, my only fallback or comparison that's relatively new is the ad hoc committee, the ad hoc finance committee that we had,
Sure.
and what was that structure like?
That was quite a bit more.
That was
25 people.
Okay, and obviously we want to keep that smaller than that, I would say.
Mhm.
Curriculum committee or curriculum council also, and now I.
Yeah, that's a completely different type
It's a
of.
different kind of animal, but
Yeah.
similar in structure in terms of teacher, board, community, correct?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I think we would welcome, their admin and or, staff involvement on that. It's just a matter of what do you guys think?
Well,
Yeah, I mean,
Is your motion to create the committee or to create?
It
the
is.
Committee and
And
structure?
structure.
Yeah.
If structure, I'd say, let's table it and talk about how many
Sure.
from each group we want.
That
And
makes sense.
Yeah, I think so.
Make a motion to form the committee and then we'll work on the,
On the structure.
Work on the structure.
that way we can get Adam's input.
Yeah.
Right.
As well as
Okay.
just talking about staff.
Sure.
The public.
So the motion is just for the creation of it.
What if we had the policy committee bring the structure
That's what I was
forward and
thinking.
put it
Okay.
into
I thought
policy?
that would be
Okay.
a good place, because you have one in April, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that would be a good place to
Okay.
flesh it out.
While we're kind of on this subject, we do have an opportunity on Friday, April 4th. To make our voices heard at, I think the legislators are gonna be there, right, Jason?
At least the finance,
The finance,
Committee.
the finance committee.
correct.
And school board members, administrators have the opportunity to actually stand up and speak. I think you're limited to 2 minutes per person, but if you do it collectively, present, you have up to 5 minutes.
I've attended the hearings in the past and so it's not just for educators, so you'll have hundreds of
Right,
people. It'll be a very large event. It'll
right.
plan on several hours.
They
And-
say people start lining up at 7 AM.
Yeah, and so oftentimes you can also submit your testimony in writing or your recommendations, and then the aides will take that and get that to them as well
Sure.
to take into consideration. But yeah, it's.
You're planning on attending?
I'm planning,
and
yeah, the
speaking?
area superintendents are planning on going and speaking, yeah,
Okay,
and then, yeah.
I can go, but I would need to leave by 3. So I wouldn't be able to stay until 5. But if anybody else, Kathy, I don't know if you were able to get up or. Because you kind of mentioned-
we've had several things in motion at
Sure.
the moment, so I
Okay.
can't commit at this
Got it.
moment. I am interested, but still can't quite lock down yet.
Yeah,
Mhm.
okay,
If there are specific points that you'd like to make sure that I reiterate, in regards to the school finance and funding. Shoot me an email, I'd be happy to bring that up. I think some key points that I know from the education side, working with the education. What do they call it? The committee is, we've received feedback that there is wiggle room on, the special education reimbursement.
yes,
Meaning support from there. I did meet with Representative Whitkey came, he's not our representative, but he's
Yes.
on the Gateway Board and his area is in that board, and he wanted to just meet with other superintendents to get a feel. So we had a good conversation for a couple of hours and he came to the district and so he has a different perspective on, it was good to see from, his perspective on how much they're willing to wiggle on that funding. I think another point is for us, because we're right at that low revenue limit threshold.
yeah.
Depending on the outcome of the referendum, really the only way for us to
Mhm.
potentially move forward is if they were to increase that low revenue limit ceiling. But I know the WASDA, which is the Superintendent Association, the School Board Association, they have coalesced around some very key points. The other one is, figuring out, can you reattach the school funding to CPI, which was attached to CPI
Right,
from 1993 through 2009.
Yeah.
And when it was attached to CPI, you had very few operational referendums
Correct.
throughout the state. Schools could live within their means, so to speak, so long as their budgets were in line with inflation.
yes,
And in 2009, that was severed, and so it really shifted to where districts have gone to where they need to have operational referendums to close that gap. And that's why you have so many that have done that. So I think that's another point
Yep.
to bring forward. I don't think they'll be approved, but I think they need to hear that
Yes.
more and more.
yes. Well, if anyone is interested in attending, Mr. Taylock will be going. I most likely will be going.
I'm working out the details and
Yeah.
hope to be going.
Could I ask a question with the legislative committee? I
Yeah.
was wondering, the term ad hoc to me refers to as very specific, like a temporary.
A specific
committee.
time.
Yes, and
I know, I was
wonder if
worried about
ad
that
hoc
too.
Should be on there. Or
So I think from
more-
policy, it really should just be a committee.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's kind of.
An advisory committee, similar to the coaching council, yeah.
So,
I'll move to approve the creation of a legislative committee
okay.
as presented to
Okay.
be further discussed policy on structure.
Okay.
I second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to create a legislative committee with the structure to be formally formalized during the policy meeting. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion passes. It's like we have some announcements.
The student.
Yes.
Oh, yes, our student
Our-
report.
Our students are overachievers. I had planned on them being gone for spring break, but they came. Thank you very much, and they create a wonderful student report. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to them to share their student report first.
We're at the high school. Last Wednesday was Officer Capacity Olympics, so I just have some pictures of teams that competed. And then the winning team consisted of Roland Frost, Aaron Schumer, Brett Kitzmiller, and Paulson Yesbeck. And their team alone raised over $500, so the event was pretty successful. And then I also have some pictures from a last track meet that happened. Tracks had a couple meets now, and then some of our other spring sports are now in session. And then it's not pictured, but prom is next week, and then in 2 weeks, April 11th and 12th will be the musical, which is Shrek.
Over at middle school, the Elkhorn Area Middle School host members attended the Waukesha Health Expo on March 11th. A big congratulations to the Elkhorn Area Middle School's academic quiz bowl team, who placed second in the competition at Williams Bay. And then Elkhorn Area Middle School Builders Club came together with Kiwanis Club of Elkhorn and Elkhorn Area High School Ski Club. They collected, assembled, and delivered 63 birthday kits for the Bridge Food and Diaper Bank.
Nice.
Jackson, the American Heart Association helps fight against heart disease. That went on, and the goal for the school was to raise $10,000, and they achieved it, raising $10,347.
Oh my goodness, that's fantastic.
The Battle of the Books was going on. That's one of the teams. They're called the Goats. Wearing the Giannis jersey, Michael Jordan. Goats. And then fourth grade had some fun at the Capitol.
Over at Tibbetts, there was a school-wide drop everything and read day. And then the 4th and 5th graders also participated in Battle of the Books. And the students read 20 books and learned about like the authors and illustrators. And then they also have an annual community art show at the library, which goes on for the whole month of March. And you guys can still check it out. And there's a bunch of artwork with about like 50 students' artwork.
Nice.
Really sweet. I was over there. So.
And then over at Westside, there was a poetry cafe, so the students got to share poetry pieces with the class, and they had snacks as well. And then there's also some pictures of the gotcha winners in the top right. And then there was teacher versus student teams for Battle of the Books, and then the student team had a quick lead in the first half, but the teacher team pulled ahead by a 2-point win, so it was a very close game. Over at Options, there was a 4th grade student, Jackson, who stopped by and visit his class before having surgery at the end of the week. And he also brought his service dog, Angel. And so all of his classmates were happy to see him and wish him good luck. And then the 3rd through 7th grade Academy students had a VR trip around the world, and they visit a bunch of different states, like DC, Yosemite, the Grand Canyon, and a bunch of other cool monuments.
Very cool.
The 22nd annual Purple and Gold fundraiser is just around the corner. All proceeds benefit the Elkhorn Area High School Scholarship Foundation. That's going on Saturday, April 26th. The Elkhorn Youth Build team went on a job visit to Scott Forge, a metal forging company, on the 12th. And then on the right there is my friend Alex putting his skills to the test.
There is it the house over in Genoa City that they're working on? Is that what that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
They're partnering with Habitat for
Yes.
Humanity, building a house in
Yeah.
Kansas City, yeah.
And a big thank you to everyone involved and the great like young athlete season. You mean the world to Miss Esther and the Elkhorn Area School District Parent Connections Program. And then story time with Miss Esther and her special guests, Miss McClung and her snakes. So that's gonna be Tuesday and Thursday, so tomorrow this week.
Is she gonna have
Thanks.
actual snakes there?
Yeah, she's got snakes. They're so scary.
Yeah.
That's kind of fun. Very cool. Thank you, guys.
All right. And then I think
Yes.
Mr. Gayheart, did you have an announcement or anything you wanted to share?
Just that it's been an honor to serve the community for the last 6 years. I'd like to thank Jason and Bill especially for always making sure that on-road diesel fuel price is listed. It's $3.56.7, if you're wondering today. And thank the board for, I think you do a fantastic job, and the teachers. I'd like to start with Ms. Shively and Ms. Messerschmidt and Ms. Shetman and Ms. Olson and Opitz and Mrs. Cooper and Coogan. Ms. Lauderdale and Mr. Stepankis. That was my West Side teachers. But they're the ones that start you on the journey.
Yeah.
And if you know my parents, this one was the expectation
Mm,
and this one was the goal.
mhm. Yes.
And it's nice that 33 years later, my daughter has the same too.
Yes, that's very cool.
I think it's shows the quality
Yes.
of education.
Yes,
So
so. Mhm.
thanks for letting me be a part.
Well, on behalf of the Board of Education and Mr. Tadlock School District, we want to present this plaque to you for your service.
Can we get the whole board
Yeah, that
on a
would be
picture?
Oh,
Hop over there, little Jamie. You look a little distanced. It's COVID's over. for you. There we go. Very good. All right.
Thank you. Thank you for your service. We have some other announcements.
Yes, the Board of Canvassers will convene on Tuesday, April 8th at 8 a.m. The team consists of Adam Andre, Jill Wells, and Jody Essman. The Policy Committee meeting is April 14th at 11 a.m. Next school board meeting is also April 14th. It's a 3-weeker. And being 3 Mondays in between.
Yes.
And the school board budget retreat has been scheduled for Wednesday, April 30th at 5:00 p.m. And
There's also a link to a legal and legislative video update from March 19th. Is that the one that I told you that it would be a good
I
idea?
believe so, yeah.
Yes, so I actually attended that legislative update, that particular day, although I jumped in late. About 20 minutes late, so I need to go back and watch the first 20 minutes. There was some really good information in that one that I think we all need to be aware of, and so if you have, you know,
An hour or so.
it's about an hour.
Yeah, I started watching it.
And then
I
there's,
think what was very interesting, I didn't know before. We're guaranteed to get $325 per student for the next 400 years.
yes, that is true. Yes.
Yeah. It was from.
I don't plan to be around at that.
That assumes that the formula is
Yeah.
that your student number stays status quo or, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Unfortunately, it's significantly lacking.
So to share, the way the formula works, off the top of your head, Bill, our budget from last year to this year. With the $325 per pupil, our budget increase was, how much was it?
180,000.
$180,000.
Yeah.
So when you look on when you look from a percentage basis on a, what our budget is, it was less than 1% of an increase.
Right.
It's like 0.8, I believe, of 1%.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
Yep. All right. Looking for a motion. We do not have a closed session tonight. That's okay.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All right.
Second that.
Roll call vote, please. On that motion to adjourn.
All right, Mr. Gayheart,
Yes.
Mayor Gordon,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingersoll,
Yes.
Mrs. Costock,
Yes.
Mrs. Reckles,
Yes.
Mr. Scarrow,
Yes.
Ms. Corpus,
Yes.
and Mr. Jaime Strong.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Adjourned.